Hi there, friends. I'm Scott Wakefield, lead pastor at First Christian Church in Greene County, and I'm here tonight with
Paul Helphinstine, the pastor at First Presbyterian Church in Johnson City.
And we are going to have a Coffee Convo. Awkward pause. Clink. There we go. Coffee Convo's friendly reminder is an opportunity to get to have some good conversation with some friends. And Paul's been a good long-time friend, ministry friend for 20-ish years or so. And so we're going to hear about the work of God in your life. And friendly reminder that we are live, so jump in the comments, let us know you're here, ask questions, all that good noodle into Paul's past and heart and life. Yeah. Ask all those kinds of
Tough revealing questions.
Yeah, exactly.
Probe my inner
Probing
soul.
questions.
Okay.
Paul loves exposing himself publicly.
I don't want that online. That's a terrible line to have out there.
So, Paul, tell us who you are and how you got to today, and family of origin,
Got it.
family, currently married, kids, all that.
All right.
Whatever you want to tell us.
Well, originally I'm from Plainfield, Indiana.
Yep.
And which is just on the west side of Indianapolis.
You are a proud Hoosier.
That's right. Very proud Hoosier. It's well, I have it in my bio that I will always be a Hoosier, and I tried to raise my boys who were born in Tennessee to be Hoosiers as well. But I blame my wife, who's a volunteer, to that they are definitely from Tennessee, and so I just always bring the Hoosier flavor to things. But of course, from Plainfield, Indiana, just on the west side of Indianapolis, and
we got a staffer here from Plainfield.
Oh, that's right, Ben. That's exactly right. Yeah. No. Let's see. I'm one of four siblings, and mom and dad. I am a child of divorce that happened when I was in my early teens. And so it actually, I always attribute that with the fact that it really made us connect deeper with the church, with youth group, needed to at that point in your life connect with really wonderful folks who are going to guide you in the right direction. And so
that was a sense of dependency.
Sure.
For you all.
Yeah, and we were thankful that we were part of Plainfield Christian Church. Wonderful pastors, wonderful youth sponsors, wonderful youth ministers through all that time, and actually, it was one of those youth sponsors that pulled me aside when we were down here at Milligan College for a youth conference, Christ in Youth Conference.
Yeah.
He pulled me aside and he said, I think you should go to Milligan College. And I always say that I picked up the phone that night, called my mom, and I think she knew better than this. But the way I tell the story is, I said, "Mom, John told me I need to go to Milligan," and she said, "Where's Milligan?" so no, she knew better than that. But we, but that's really all it took. I trusted my youth leaders that much.
Yeah,
they were wonderfully faithful people, wonderful faith.
That was extremely common in church world, in youth ministry.
Oh, and I'm so thankful for it.
Yeah.
It was between that and going to a school in Indiana, probably a larger school. And so that took an adjustment, especially when friends had, other university experiences when you're in a small college. But Milligan, it was the greatest, it was just the greatest experience of my life. And when I was there, I met my wife, Emily, who was 1 year behind me in school. And so it was the traditional story where we got married as soon as I graduated, or I guess in the fall after I graduated. Emily had just started her last year there. She ran cross country for Milligan, and
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and we lived there on campus. I was a school teacher. I was an 8th grade teacher at Liberty Bell in Johnson City, and that.
How long did you teach?
I taught for 1 year.
Oh, okay.
And there are so
I thought it was a short career.
There are so many stories, because as you may not know, but I'm much younger than Scott.
Right.
And much younger than Scott.
Yes.
So I taught for 1 year, And then I went on to work for just a little shy of 3 years as the assistant to the president at Milligan when it was Don Jeans, and which is basically a fundraising job. And all during that time, I was a music minister at Harrison Christian Church.
Yes, you were.
That later plays into the story, and I don't think we've got time for all of that. But I, that was just something I did part-time every week. And even though I was traveling quite a bit
was
from
that
Milligan,
your first paid ministry gig?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
I did some volunteering youth ministry when I was in college.
Right,
and
right.
things.
That was your first sort of vocational
experience there. A wonderful man named Palma Bennett was the pastor. A lot of people know him around East Tennessee and Western North Carolina.
Yeah.
And he affirmed in me that this was something that I could do. And I don't know if I was necessarily listening at that time.
Now you know you can't.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Carry on.
Once you get in, you fail. You fail over and over and over again. But the so
he lied to you, is what
he lied to me every time. He may be watching tonight.
Yes, exactly.
But but actually, the great story is that I really was was thankful for my experience at Milligan, working there. But I wasn't a very good fundraiser. I was only between 23 and 25 years old, and so they had given me my very first cell phone. It was an Ericsson cell phone. I remember it. I was had a school car, so we were living in Kingsport, and I was driving along at the time Interstate 181, and on the way home, and feeling especially wondering what God's call was on my life at that point. And my folks from First Pres know this story, but I was just driving along, and sadly, I was talking to my mom on my phone. This is before we had hands-free devices, and I said, "Mom, I just don't know what I want to do." And she said, "Well, where are you happiest?" And I think in retrospect, she meant between fundraising and teaching. Two viable career options for me at the time.
She was thinking these two.
Yeah.
For some reason, a third one for you was a part of what she
and
wasn't saying.
I remember that moment, and
That's awesome.
I can almost remember where I was on the interstate, because she said, "Where are you happiest?" And I just said, "I'm happiest when I'm at church." And to her wisdom, to the power of the Holy Spirit, whatever happened in that moment, the call came, and the call from God to serve in the church came, and she said, "Well, I think you have your answer."
I've never heard that story,
And
I've heard
You've heard all your stories. You've heard all my stories. I can't believe that's the rare one you've missed. Yeah.
And maybe I have and I don't remember.
Yeah.
But it is, and you find out after you've been in ministry a while, you find out this sort of this love for the local church in that way. That's kind of weird.
Yeah.
That's not normal.
Nothing in my life is.
And so that sense of this is where God's leading you and what you should be doing, coupled with the idea of a love for the local church, is weird. And I have a similar experience that involves me driving.
Yeah.
And I was listening to a sermon, and I was feeling a similar sense of discontent about where am I in life and what am I supposed to be doing, and I always had this. Local church is always a part of my life.
That's it.
And is always a foundationally important, meaningful connection point for me. And that was always there. And I think I always had this sense of this is what I'm supposed to do with my life, because I sort of saw myself in various church roles, even vocationally. But I'd never done that as this is my calling and my vocation. I was on the road, heard a sermon, I just started bawling.
Yeah.
Because the person said the local church is the hope of the world. And I remember buying in right there, thinking, well, okay, I guess this is what I do now.
Yeah, it's a remarkable feeling, and obviously it becomes more profound in retrospect.
Yeah.
But you realize that, and I always tell people that that not a single one of those steps was wasted, because they were preparing me for that moment when, through my mom's voice or maybe mistaken question, the call came.
Speaking the truth mistakenly.
That's right. And so, my year of teaching was not wasted time.
Sure.
In fact, the relationships I built, the connections with young people, proved to be invaluable when later, even though I swore to a friend that I would never, ever go into youth ministry. I find myself in youth ministry for seven years.
Yes. And you and I have a story there.
We do have a story there. You could tell that if you like. But I'll tell you the story. So Scott and I were the final candidates for a youth ministry job at one point. In fact, I met him, these pieces all came together at a Sunday school party for Grandview.
Okay.
And that's when I discovered that you were applying for that job as well, I think.
Maybe. I don't remember that part of it.
Yeah, well, maybe. Yeah. So at least that's how I've made it up in my mind. But
Sounds good.
But to know that I was in the running with Scott is always...
And you instantly feared because you thought, there's no chance I'll get this job.
There's no chance. This guy is too polished. He's too good. Look how good looking this man is.
That's right.
It's going to be great. No, so, but anyway, but that time in teaching school and the challenges there and the need to keep showing up for kids and in learning to be a professional and educating,
that's right.
That played into my ability to later work to develop and disciple young people.
Yeah.
The time
always showing up.
Right. The time fundraising. That's not a wasted step in any way, because now I spend every single, as my FP folks will know, I spend a whole lot of time talking about money, and thankfully they are very wonderfully generous people. But those professional steps weren't wasted. Obviously, the time in doing music in a church wasn't wasted. But I'd even go further back. I think God prepares us along the way. It was finding my home, finding my mentors, finding my heroes in the local church that painted, I guess, created in my mind a picture of what that life in ministry might look like. So and for that youth sponsor to have, I don't know if he knew me well, but to be able to, I don't know if he knew what he was doing when he said you should go to Milligan.
He saw something.
Yeah.
And he thought.
Yeah, and so my friend Nathan and I came down to Milligan together with Katie, also from Plainfield. But I'm very thankful for that. I don't know where I was headed with that, but
let's wrap up the you and I both in the running for the youth pastor story by saying, I remember looking back thinking, wait a second. I've been in youth ministry full-time 5 years.
Yeah.
I have as much education as he does.
Right.
He has no time in youth ministry whatsoever. Why did he get the job?
Right. Yeah. And later on, the people at First Pres were also asking that same question. Why did we go with the other guy?
Why?
Yeah. No,
good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So we already have some questions.
Yeah.
They are sitting here on my wrist ready to ask you.
All right.
Yeah.
I didn't finish my story with the bio with my family. So Emily and I, we've been married for this will be our 22nd year in September 4th.
22nd. So you were born. You were married in
99.
99.
Isn't that right? My math is correct. And then we have two wonderful sons. Isaac, I should start with the oldest, right? John, who's 16, is going to be 17 in June, and he'll be a senior at Dobbins-Bennett High School this next year, going on to college, which I know you know the experience.
Yep.
And but he's a fantastic, wonderful young man. Really great golfer, wonderful artist, great student. I could say more, but I won't right now. But Isaac is 12, and he is a wonderful golfer, wonderful student, great young leader, and but also just as funny as the day is long. I mean, the driest wit. So I'll tell you,
I've heard you tell some.
The other day,
some good jokes.
The other day, he was playing a golf match, and he got a chance to play at the Virginian, which was this. I mean, I had never been there.
Yeah.
One of the most beautiful golf courses I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
The whole experience was really wonderful.
Yeah.
And his home course is Cattails in Kingsport, which is a great course, wonderful people.
Sure.
But it's
not the Virginian.
It's apples and oranges there.
Yes.
Well, his coach pulled up in the golf cart and asked Isaac, "Hey, what do you think?" And Isaac turns to him and said, "Well, it's no cattails, but it'll do." So Isaac is.
Nice.
I've just been blessed with a tremendous family. My wife Emily is the literacy coordinator for the city of Kingsport schools, and just a wonderfully well-respected professional in her own right.
Yep,
So
yep.
I'm incredibly blessed that they put up with me.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
So I know the answer to a lot of these questions.
Go for it.
But of course, some of our people may not.
Right.
And I suspect most of the First Pres people know some of the answers to these questions. Are you more introvert or extrovert?
So I always answer that question saying that I am truly an introvert because but in what I've done in my life, I've had to learn to be an extrovert. And so that means that it does take time for me to recharge my batteries.
Yeah.
I spend more energy in interacting than I do. Some people, they just feel enlivened by it.
I can do it all day.
I deeply love people.
Yes.
But I need that alone time. I need that recharging time.
Yeah.
So an introvert, but boy, I can pull off being an extrovert.
I was going to say,
if
I think
to.
most folks think you're an extrovert.
Sure they do. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
because that's how they experience you generally.
I'm always happy to see you. I'm not always happy to see me, but I'm, we'll get into that deep psychology later.
Yeah. Are you more breakfast or dinner? Which do you like better?
Yeah. I actually like breakfast.
As you should, because it's better.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know what it is. It's
You like the early morning experience?
No. I'm more of a late night person.
Really?
But yeah, just because that's the time that you're recharging those batteries. But
Yeah.
and I don't mean extreme late, but
and I hear you talk about a number of things like I watched this or I did this or I read this.
Yeah.
And you'll often talk about it at night.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm the opposite. I do it in the morning.
That's what I know. You're sound asleep long before I'm going
Exactly.
to bed. But there's just something about a good, just wonderful breakfast. Now, most of the time I'm eating this terrible, healthy flakes thing, so that's not enjoyable. But if I can go somewhere and have a fun, wonderful, like eggs and bacon breakfast, then I prefer that. But really, anytime I don't usually turn away a meal. Yeah.
So, questions, and I got more of my own.
Yeah, fire away. What do we
Here's
got?
some that have come in. What's your most embarrassing mess up in a sermon?
Most embarrassing mess up in a sermon.
That'll take a long time to think of.
Okay, I won't, because there are so many. Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's one of my first ones.
Okay.
I was this is, I hope I can do this safely on
yes,
I know
this
exactly.
story. Do tell.
So I think it was actually my second sermon at Harrison Christian Church. So if you want to know my entire bio, by golly, we're going to have coffee some other time. And
Yes.
I'll share all those twists and turns with you.
This will be phase one of
But this is
4.
the church that I was at first, and then that's the first church I served as the pastor.
Yeah.
And I had never used technology in sermons really, but I knew that's what pastors were doing, right? You're just learning how to do this. So I thought I think the sermon was called "A New Kind of King," and it was actually on Triumphal Entry Sunday.
Okay.
On Palm Sunday.
Yeah.
And so I thought there is this really funny clip from Monty Python's the Holy Grail.
Holy Grail, yeah.
And where these peasants, they're going along, and these peasants question the king's bona fides as being a king. And,
Yeah.
and so I think this is just a great clip. It's going to get people laughing and all that kind of stuff. So then a few minutes before the service began, I didn't go back there to check on anything. I went back to the sound booth and I said, you know what? That's a little hard for people to hear, real heavy British accents. So I told Zach, who was running the soundboard
Yes.
and doing the DVD, I said, hey, would you just turn on the closed captioning for this? Well, if you know anything about Monty Python at all,
Yes.
and that was I grew up in the era where folks are trying to memorize all the lines, and because you made your friends laugh by that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Monty Python knew that that's what people do. They watch along with the closed captioning so they can do these scenes for their friends.
Yes.
Well, in a purely Monty Python
Yes.
thing, they had the words. So as I'm sitting on the front pew of the church watching this clip that I know is just going to kill. It's going to be great.
It's gonna be
great. I'm watching this clip come up there, and all of a sudden I'm like, those words don't match what I am.
Yeah.
What I think is being said on the screen, and all of a sudden just this wash of panic because knowing Monty Python, they might put anything on that screen, and when I'm just in a panic moment, I put my head between my knees, and I'm just like, and so
that's the part of the story I remember best. Doing that.
So
move.
this is the posture in which I go into my second sermon at this place. And
and it killed.
It was so I have to say that was the biggest mess up. I weekly mess something up, but that's normal life.
Well, yes. We're not talking theologically. We're talking. Let's see. What is the most Midwest thing you do? The most Hoosier thing you do, as asked by a fellow Hoosier.
The most Hoosier thing I do.
Midwest thing you do.
Well, I don't know if this is Midwest. This is Hoosier. This is straight up Hoosier.
Yep.
Oh, and this is going to reveal something deep about me. But anyway, on Memorial Day weekend, on Sunday, Memorial Day, of course, is the running of the Indianapolis 500. And I always toyed with the idea of writing a book early on that just said it just was called A Hoosier in Exile, right? That here's this person who was meant to live his entire life in Indiana and suddenly finds himself living the vast majority of his life in Tennessee. Jokingly, because I love Tennessee, I just it's just one of those things. But on that Sunday, my kids know, my wife knows, they usually go somewhere else because I'm going to go home and I've recorded the 500 because it starts before I get home.
Yeah.
I sit there and I have to watch the entire pre-race, which has all the pageantry of things, including back home again in Indiana.
This is a Paul thing. I'm like, let's fast forward to okay.
Yeah, I'm watching.
You do the whole.
I want the whole experience. That's it. I want the balloons launching. I want to see, ladies and gentlemen, start your engines.
Right.
And when they play back home again in Indiana, every time I weep. And, I do. That's awesome. And then of course I love car racing, so I will watch that. I mean, real car racing, Indy car racing. But that's probably the most Hoosier thing I do.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the origin of your last name and what does it mean?
Wow. Okay. So I don't know a whole lot about the origin of my last name. I know these pieces. So there is a place. There's a a castle in Germany called Helphinstine.
Oh, really?
But they spelled it Helfenstein.
Okay.
So there were a lot of spelling changes as this name came over to America.
Sure.
And I've heard recently that they entered in through around Wilmington, North Carolina, and there was a settlement there. Yeah. But eventually, almost the entire Helphinstine clan, which is very small, until I named my youngest son Paul Isaac Helphinstine, I was the only Paul Helphinstine in the entire United States, according to that census thing that you guys showed me. So I share that with my son.
I remember we looked at that. That's cool.
But so anyway, when I was in seminary, Bob Wetzel, wonderful Bob Wetzel, he called me in his office one day to have tea.
Of course, he did. Just for this moment.
And he said,
just for this moment,
because he said, Paul, I want you to know, I love your last name. The Hebrew word for stone of help is Ebenezer, and so Helphinstein is helping stone, and so it's the German version of Ebenezer. So that's kind of what I know about it. The rest of the crew moved to northeast Kentucky, around Maysville area, and still have family there even now. So.
I had forgotten that Bob Wetzel.
Oh, yeah.
But of course he called you in. Probably just for that moment.
And I loved it.
Absolutely. That's good. Paul Helphinstine.
Yeah.
What's your favorite hobby?
Favorite hobby?
Or some favorite hobbies?
Sure. Well, I mean...
Sermon prep on Monday mornings with the crew.
We'll have to get there, because that is one of my favorite things to do all week. But my favorite hobby is golfing, and I golf with my sons, and that's incredibly special time. We've been golfing together since they were really little, and now to see them be so much better than me, it's actually really frustrating.
Really wonderful.
But that is my favorite time. I like being out there. We walk the course because when I'm not playing or I can't play for some reason, I love going out for long walks. That's just where I kind of clear my head and get my exercise. So that's
cool.
Yeah.
What practices of daily, everyday faithfulness keep you going in your ministry? Good question here. What practices of daily, everyday faithfulness keep you going in your ministry?
Well,
you've taken a serious turn.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Yeah.
I mean, they keep me going in my ministry. I obviously pray. I'm working in Scripture all the time. Those kind of things are very important to me.
Yeah.
I've had a greater appreciation, and this is going to sound like I didn't appreciate it before, but a greater appreciation for the Holy Spirit working in each and every day, opening up conversations with people. And on the toughest days, honestly, it's like your marriage. It's the vows you make. This is who you are. This is who God called you to be. And so sometimes, so certainly, prayer, Bible study, living the Christian life in community. Those things are sustaining practices that thankfully the folks at First Pres and the other churches that I've been blessed to serve have. They've been more than willing to allow me to be part of their community and help me to lead. Yeah. So those things are important. Obviously, some devotional reading, mostly of a theological nature. When you run across a new idea, and that's why I do so much love our Monday morning. And we can talk more about that for other reasons. But I did
want to get to Monday morning sermon prep stuff and some of that relationship, and then of course First Pres and how that's going.
Well, in that case,
soon,
in that case, then we'll save most of that.
Yeah.
But it's the conversations that we have together as ministers.
Yeah.
That, I mean, that's.
There's a sense in which that's not daily.
That's not daily. You're right.
But that's a regular practice. That's a help. For sustaining
and I guess
ministry.
Maybe one of the unique ones also is music. I do still very much love music, and I get a lot of not just inspiration, but I deeply love Rich Mullins. We'll always love Rich Mullins.
I was going to just start singing a song from Rich.
We can do Rich
because I knew that's where you were headed.
But I of course grew into Andrew Peterson. Those kind of listening to music that inspires me is really important. And actually, I used to listen to a lot of podcasts, and I still do those when I'm walking. But when I'm in my car, I try to make it a practice to put on the Spotify list from our church that has all of our contemporary worship music with it. And oh man, thankfully, we've got just a wonderful list of songs there that continue to speak to me.
Good stuff. A few more questions here. Tyson wants to know, what's your opinion on board games?
I hate board games.
There we go. There's your answer, Tyson.
Yeah. Sorry.
Do you really not like board games?
Okay, so I'm terrible at board games.
I kind of don't like board games, not because I don't like the concept of board games, but I'm boring and practical, and I'm like, I don't have time to play a board game.
So I'd rather entertain people in that moment rather than concentrate on the game. So there's a game that my family's obsessed with. It's called Ticket to Ride, and it's about building these trains and all these different destinations, and I am so terrible at it. I have won, and I've played probably hundreds of times. I've won one time.
Hundreds
of times, because the family out west.
You are terrible.
I'm terrible at it. I once spent a day with friends, a rainy or snowy day when I was in high school. We were going to play euchre.
I love euchre.
Right. Well,
Midwest game.
Yeah, it is a Midwest game. We played all day long, and I didn't win a single whatever.
You're a terrible game player.
I'm terrible because I was terrible at chess too. So. All of these things. So I like doing things I'm good at, which it makes golf all the more puzzling because I'm not good at that.
Tyson would also like to know, where would you recommend I take my wife in JC for a date night?
Ooh, date night in JC. Let's see. Depends on what you're looking for. I would say The Label is a really good restaurant, and with a good atmosphere. And I'm probably and then a walk in Founders Park. There you go.
Yeah.
And then just stroll up past First Pres.
There we go.
Take in all the beauty and be
look
there.
up at that spire.
It is great.
There.
Yeah.
This is a good little question. Nathan says, so you guys have been friends for a while now, Paul and Scott. Paul, if you can only talk to Scott about one thing for the rest of your life and nothing else, what would it be?
Okay.
Reformed theology, obviously.
Obviously that. So there's one thing I have to let you know is Scott Wakefield is one of my favorite people in the world to make laugh. And so if I can make Scott laugh, my Monday is off to a zooming start at that point.
That's true.
And so I love doing that. But I think the thing I would talk to Scott about is the experience of growing up a Christian church kid.
Yeah.
Because there's so many commonalities.
And
that
it's a small, weird world.
It is.
In its own way.
It is. And so when you mention people like Tony and Donnie and folks of our youth conference days,
That's right.
Jeff Moody, all those kind of folks, it starts coming together and, of course, culminates in the high point.
Jeff Moody was one of my dad's students.
Oh yeah. And of course Rich Mullins. So if I can talk about it, it's about our the weird world of growing up a Christian church kid, which I love. By the way,
went to my home church in Cincinnati for a number of years and grew up there.
Yeah.
I know we've talked about that before, but we're talking about weird things that nobody else knows.
But that's great.
Or cares about. Late to the chat, and this may already been answered. How did you and Scott meet and get to know each other? Applying for the same youth ministry job. Yep. Paul got it. I did not.
But I've got a better story for that one. I got a good story for this. So we had these little interactions, mainly through our connections with Grandview Christian Church early on.
Yeah.
But never really got to know each other. The story for me with Scott, and I've got to include in here Aaron Weimer, is that my very first year, I believe, in ministry at Harrison, so it'd been the summer after I got there. The pattern was you went to the North American Christian Convention. And Scott and Aaron were already, good friends. They were already working together on sermons, and I just hung out with them that week, a lot of it.
Yeah.
And
that was kind of the first week where we got to know each other, really.
Absolutely. And the best part of that, and has been a lifeline for me ever since, was when Scott and Aaron asked me to be part of our sermon writing group, which we call affectionately the Linklings.
The Linklings.
And so when they did that, and I realized for the first time I had friends who were colleagues in ministry, I felt so accepted by them, and still to this day, it's just such a life-giving thing. And to have two much older guys ask me to do that, it was incredible.
I'm easy pickings for you.
Yeah, you are.
That's the sad part.
That's it. Yeah.
We do have a few more questions.
Yeah.
But then I want to make a bit of a seriouser turn.
Got it.
Your charismatic personality can be contagious. That's someone in the room with us right here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Your charismatic personality can be contagious.
Scott loves these points.
But tell us what makes you the maddest, the fastest. That's quite a... What makes you lose your temper easiest?
Who are these folks that ask really?
You know exactly who this person is in the room. Yes.
Oh, are you serious? Why are you doing this to me? What makes me maddest, quickest? My kids are probably going to have a different answer for this, but
they would know.
Yeah, they would know. It's the people you ask. I think the thing that makes me maddest the quickest is somebody treating, and this is truly, if I see somebody treating another person cruelly or demanding their own way over, and this can kind of bleed into church life, and it's not First Pres. I think it's common for a lot of churches. When our work is to reach out and bring others to know Christ, it causes us to need to be willing to reach out. And so often in church world, regardless of the church name that's on there, our tendency is to hold on with an iron grip on what made us feel comfortable, right? Yes. And there's some beauty in that, and that's why we maintain traditions. But when that desire to hold on to traditions of the way things were outpaces a desire to see others come to know Christ.
Yes.
That's a frustrating thing, and I think it's a larger, maybe more church focused outplaying of when I see folks in society just be ugly to one another.
Yeah, it's a form of injustice.
Yeah.
It's shepherd me to the exclusion of shepherding others who need things.
Yeah.
Maybe like you're healthy and okay. What's wrong keeping you and us from doing this over here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that, and I think that's just something that, we just have to work. And luckily, I've been blessed to have a lot of folks that are willing to come right along and get excited about the work that the church is doing, and love one another. What great piece of this last year for us was, the issue of mask wearing, all that kind of stuff has been just such a hot button issue in society.
Would you say that's been the most challenging part of pastoring in the last year-ish?
The mask part?
Yes.
I wouldn't say the mask part necessarily, but it's just the constant thinking of the pandemic has been a major part. For us, we early on decided we're going to pose this as a love issue, loving our neighbor. And so our folks were really willing to embrace that. And so it allowed us to keep it out of the political realm, which to me was it made me want to celebrate our folks a whole lot because they've been so good about that.
Yeah. That helps answer a couple questions people had about a couple things. Question here says, if money and time are no object, what country or continent would you like to visit?
Okay. So
that's a good question.
My grandmother was was a wonderful Australian lady. And so I've always, and I still have family in Australia. I've gotten to visit a couple of times.
Cool.
And I'd love to take Emily and the boys to Australia.
Yeah.
So that's probably one of those, certainly one of those places I'd love to visit.
Yeah.
And then of course, back on the golf theme, I would absolutely play golf with my boys and we'd take Emily along. I promise. But to play golf either at Pebble Beach or at St. Andrews in Scotland.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
That'd be good stuff. So tell us something about you most people don't likely know, or they'd be surprised about. You and I are very similar in that, we like certain things.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we like, and we don't really care about other stuff. And
I think I told somebody. I told our church secretary this maybe a few weeks ago, was that I do love people. I deeply love people.
Yeah.
But because of that introvert side of me, that I know it takes a lot of energy, I would almost rather not go anywhere. One of my favorite guys I listen to is Tony Kornheiser, and listen to his podcast and all those kind of things. And he always talks about life on the grid. Don't take me off the grid.
That's you.
And that's where I connect so deeply with him, because I'm so pattern driven. And it doesn't mean that I'm rigid about my I've got to exercise at this time of day. It's just more where I'm most comfortable. And so I love it. I try to bring people onto my grid. But too often they're like, oh, there's this wonderful party. There's a person wants to invite us over as a couple to have us be there at for a whatever kind of get together or party.
Yeah.
And it does take me some pep talk, I'd say, or pep talking, internal pep talking to get me to go. But hear me when I say this.
That's a little surprising.
That doesn't mean that I don't love the people once I get there. The only problem is I just feel like I'm on when I get to some place.
Yeah. And
so that's why I also am neurotic. And we're leaving. I lean over to Emily and I say, "How did I do?"
You
see this? I should put this out on the internet.
You are a people pleaser
to the core.
Yes,
and that's what God and I wrestle with a lot.
Yeah.
Because it's like God says, why don't you go ahead and spend some time pleasing me and not everybody around you.
Let's talk ministry. First Pres. Linklings.
Yeah.
Linklings is the Monday crew. Paul, Aaron Weimer from Grandview Christian Church in Johnson City and I, and then a few others who come along from our staffs. Linklings is akin to the C.S. Lewis crew that was called the Inklings.
Yeah.
And they met in The Bird and the Baby, or The Eagle and the Child.
Yeah.
And they would smoke pipes and drink adult beverages and talk theology and present papers to one another. And
things that are frowned upon on Monday mornings.
things that we... traditions we do not carry on.
Yeah, that's right.
Except for the presenting of papers idea.
Yeah.
And so we gather and we work through our sermon prep process in some basic terms to begin to get the trajectory for what we're doing for the next Sunday. And we call it Linklings for a couple reasons, because we are together and we're linked. But the L also stands for sort of less than.
Yeah, right.
Because we're nothing remotely akin to those intellectually high-minded C.S. Lewis types.
Yeah.
So that's the Linklings. We actually have a sticker.
We
have
do.
a logo. We need to get shirts and
Very fancy
we
stuff.
need to up the ante a little bit.
Yeah.
So you've been at First Pres.
I got there very beginning of September 2019.
Okay, and you were there as youth minister for
7 years, from 2002 to 2009.
Okay, all right, 2009. All right. How is being senior minister different than youth minister in general terms? And how is it being senior minister at First Pres after having been youth minister there before?
Yeah, this may take longer than the time we've got, but I'm going to give it my best shot. No, I mean,
You have 30 seconds.
It's an incredible honor to be able to serve in a place where you've served before, because there is I think, hopefully, I pray, a vote of confidence there that says, hey, we liked what you did, your work ethic, who you were when you were here with us before.
Yeah, we trust you to do this because we knew you here.
Right,
Yeah.
and so when I was, when I received the call to come to First Pres as the senior minister, one of the things I think that my pastor nominating committee, which is the search committee, and probably I feared too, was that I would only be that, right? You're the guy who we knew as a young guy, and so to lead after that is very challenging, because as a youth minister you're leading young people, and that's a great thing, but you are not leading a church. And so it gave me an endless appreciation once I got into pastoral ministry. That leading is hard, and there, a lot of folks can, from a little bit more on the sidelines, can see they don't always see the stresses of that.
Sure.
But I was thankful and blessed to have been a pastor at two other places before, and so I knew that I was going to a much larger situation.
And that sort of meant okay. So you talked a couple things there.
Yeah.
They trusted you to do this because they knew you did this, and they knew you. You knew by that point doing this is not the same as doing this.
That's
because
right.
you had, and so you knew I can do this.
Yeah.
And even though they knew who you were, they didn't know you can do this.
I see where you're going. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that was and that is a totally legitimate question.
Absolutely.
Because and it makes me all the more confident in God's participation in this call.
Yeah.
Because
equipping you for this.
That I do believe that I have the skills and the ability to help us to be our healthiest and best at First Pres.
Yeah.
But of course, anybody who's ever led anybody knows you can't do that if you can't also rally the people around you.
Yep.
There is no church of one pastor. That's
no.
just like, so unless you're able to bring people along into a vision, and thankfully I've had amazing elders in the church who have helped me to set vision. One of our elders, Brian Johnston, led an entire visioning process early on before COVID. Thankfully, we did that because it set in motion a lot of things that have now come to place, or come to happen after this experience.
I knew that was happening. I didn't know the extent to which that elder or had sort of led that.
Yeah,
that's good.
He's amazing at that. He does this in his career. But the fact is, we set a vision, and I do believe it's compelling for folks, and so there's an excitement in the church. There's a joy in in what we're doing and the improvements we've been able to make. And of course, I'm building on, I think I'm the 13th or 14th pastor of a church that's been around for 150 years. We were planted basically right when Johnson City was founded. And we just celebrated our bicentennial the year I came in.
Cool.
And so I stand on the shoulders of a lot of people who went before me. But as any life cycle of a church, there are ups and downs. And I just think that we are moving towards something that is great. And I believe it is very focused on helping people, as you guys would say, I believe, know and connect,
find and follow Jesus.
Right? Yeah. And because I think there is no purpose for the church if not that.
Yeah, that's right.
If you, the purpose is to be the prettiest church, the friendliest church, the happiest church, all those things may be great. But if you're not leading people to find and follow Jesus, then there's a real problem there.
That's right. What are some of the particular wrinkles of that, factors, practical ways you would describe that for you that you're excited about at First Pres now? I mean, you just talked about that in large-scale terms. What in particular excites you about where you're headed at First Pres?
Well, I think that everything is really dependent on leadership. I'm really excited about the leadership of our session, which is our church word for the board of elders. And so that was a big deal, is to get a group, and I think we've all noticed just pulling in the same direction. That is such a life-giving thing for your pastor. You don't understand, and it's not that we don't talk about serious issues.
Right.
So I would locate most of my excitement there, or a lot of my excitement in
a sense of unified for the same mission.
Yes. Yeah. That's a big deal. So I would give my elders a whole lot of credit.
If that's not there, whatever else you're going to do is not going to be what it could and should be.
Yeah.
And you're going to be constantly pulling.
Yeah, that's right. And so those leadership meetings have become, like I said, life-giving and empowering, exciting things.
Good.
But then I would also say we've got a lot of long-term families there that have been willing to embrace and bring me in and give me a chance. And when I do quirky new things, they're willing to either hold their breath, or they're willing to come right along.
We'll give it some time, see how it goes.
But these are the people that knew when I was a youth minister, I did like a circus peanut extravaganza. So nice. I don't know if that plays in their willingness to give me some room, but no, they
I would never have done circus peanut.
The joy, I think it's infectious from your leadership out. And people see, I believe we've got a great staff. They're working hard. They're working together. And we've made a lot of changes, and that can be uncomfortable.
Absolutely, sure.
But the support of so many of my congregants, and the work of staff together, bringing some new folks on. All those things really give me a whole lot of encouragement that we're moving in the right place. We launched a capital campaign not too long ago, but I think did it the right way, or we are trying to do it the right way.
Yeah.
And so we've made physical improvements to the building, which can be difficult when you have a large building like that.
Yes, but when you're doing that in a way that's a piece of a larger vision, it's not just building. Yeah. That's a capital campaign. Where you're doing physical things that feel like they're a part of the entire longer-term mission.
Right, and I would say to that the biggest thing there is that when you have a large building, especially a downtown church like that, when times are tight, your building can start feeling like a burden. And one of the things I talk to our leadership about, and one of the things I talk to other folks that have either been generous in contributing or have been a part of these discussions around who we are becoming.
Yes,
it's that our building is not a burden; it is a blessing.
Yeah. And
the ministry that has been done in that building, and the ministry that will be done in that building, in bringing people to know and to find and follow Christ is that's exciting to look out to.
Yeah.
And so we want to really start saying this is who we're becoming, and our building is certainly a part of that.
Sure.
But like with you've got to have a community of believers coming together around a consistent and dynamic mission to reach a community. I'm incredibly gratified and excited about where moving toward.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
What would you say is the best part about? We'll end on some linklings. Too.
Okay, sure.
What have been some of the best parts of meeting together on Mondays with our crew together, insofar as it's challenged you, and insofar as it's been encouraging and helpful? Because we have fun.
Yeah.
No doubt. For those who don't know, which is probably most folks who are the throngs of dozens who are listening and watching, we get together, we do sermon. Actually, we kind of start out with a little bit of an informal, how to go Sunday, how's it going, and from yesterday, etc. And then we talk about the sermon text, and we talk about the direction for it, and we have a pretty formal process that we go through.
Yeah.
We do that for hour and a half-ish, and then we go off to eat lunch together for about the next hour. So that's what it looks like. What have been some helpful, challenging parts of that for you over the years? And then what also are just, regular, encouraging, helpful things about that?
That's great. I mean, obviously, it's endless encouragement. I mean, really, ever since you all invited me to be a part of that so many years ago now, it is a... just being able to have a group of folks who know what it feels like to be able to laugh at things that, and in most people's careers, they have this, somebody that kind of knows the shorthand of what you're doing.
Yep.
And so we do. We make each other laugh. We have very serious conversations about leading church. We challenge one another in writing better sermons, and it does. It is such a leaping off place for the week.
Yeah.
Because I'd say that it's almost equal part. I'm so glad to have a head start with sermon.
Right.
But to be able to spend time with colleagues, and particularly for the longest time, you and Aaron, who then when we sit down at lunch. It's not that we don't want to incorporate everybody else in. They're all part of this too. Tommy and Tyson, and of course, Wes and Nathan and other people that are there.
Yeah.
But but to be able to sit down and say, man, here is the challenge I'm facing this week.
Yeah.
And we all, I think, do it equally.
Yes.
And so it doesn't feel like anybody's dominating the conversation.
No.
And of course I'm sitting there always just trying to get you guys to laugh too. But I'm
an easy target for some reason.
I can't tell you how much of a blessing that's been. And we don't always agree on we certainly don't agree on everything.
No. And part of what I was thinking.
That's the big challenge.
About the challenge piece is, we'll throw out, here's what I'm thinking about this passage and why. And someone will throw out, well, I think da-da-da-da. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So then you have to sort of defend what you're saying or incorporate that additional piece and go, yeah, I guess I need to sort of adjust my thinking this way a bit. And so that crucible part of it is very helpful when you're doing sermon prep at the beginning to get a trajectory going.
It really is an iron sharpening iron kind of place because, it's not just that we might disagree on this point or that point. There's a level of trust in that room that we also trust that each of us are still being formed.
Yeah.
This is a lifelong journey. And so there's not a, oh, wow, this person is now kind of thinking about these issues and is this safe territory? No, we know because we are friends first in all that we're coming back next Monday. Yeah. We're here for this. And we know what kind of value in the once a year, or Aaron Weimer, who teaches a class at Emmanuel about preaching. Yep. I'm always really honored that he asks us to and a few other ministry colleagues to come to that.
Because we're preaching experts.
Right. Yeah. Maybe you, but I certainly my folks will not stand behind that statement. But what he wants to show these young pastors is this kind of relationship is so critical for you. Mm-hmm. Whether it is on your own staff, that may happen in some larger churches, but you need to build these relationships because they will, talk about those practices, even though it's only once a week.
Right.
I mean, really, our relationship is beyond Monday. We're texting each other, calling each other, running into a rough place in a sermon, giving each other a call.
I just made fun of you in a text earlier today.
That's right. He did.
Yes.
I'm glad we didn't have time to go into that. But
I forgot to play it at the beginning.
that's right. I thought that might be coming, but no. But yeah, that relationship is so important, and I would hope that young pastors realize that is a life-sustaining practice.
It's a community of encouragement over the long haul that everyone needs in their lives.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you said that, because that is the beauty of, I mean, yes, we get to do it because it's our careers,
right,
and it's our calling.
Right.
But wow, isn't it exactly what, why you belong to a small group, why you belong to whatever that group is for you in your church. You're there because, and you're in it for the long haul, and you're willing to stick it out even through difficult times.
Oh yeah.
I just think that Christian community, Christian relationships like that, they will sustain you through very tough times.
Yeah. Good stuff. Let's end on that.
All right.
Indeed.
And thanks for my folks watching.
Yes, indeed. Thanks for joining us. This has been
Yeah.
wonderfully illuminating.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. That's what he made fun of me for earlier. Thank you, everybody. Yeah.
Wonderfully illuminating.